Solving equations such as this one would require me to show some mathematical writing and some working before I end up with a solution. So to be able to do that, I need to be able to figure out how am I going to undo all these processes that have happened to G. So it would be a good idea when you're doing questions like this one to have a think about the story of G. So if we say we've got this number called G and figure out what's happened to it, there's been 1 added to it, and then the answer has been divided by 3, and the answer to the equation is 2. So if I'm working this direction for the story, I've got this letter called G, this number called G, I'm adding 1, then I'm dividing by 3, and I'm getting an answer of 2. The story's working in the downward direction there. So to undo the story, I could work backwards in the opposite direction and undo each process by performing the opposite process. So instead of dividing by 3, I'm going to undo that divide by 3 by doing the opposite, timesing by 3. And instead of adding 1, I'm going to undo that by doing the opposite and subtracting 1 from both sides of that equation. So doing the little story lets me figure out what's happening in what order and lets me get a plan as to what I'm going to undo and in what order. So working backwards in my story, what I need to do first is to multiply both sides of the equation by 3. So if I multiply this side of the equation by 3, means I need to also multiply this side of the equation by 3. And that has the effect of cancelling out the fraction, and I'm left with G plus 1 is equal to 2 times 3 is 6. So now I've got a simpler equation, but it's still not how I need it to be. I still haven't got G by itself, I've got G plus 1. So in order to cancel out that plus 1, I need to subtract 1 from both sides. So if I subtract 1 from both sides of the equation, I cancel out the 1s, so I do now just have G, how I wanted, and 6 take away 1, G is 5. So my solution to that equation, or the number that makes that equation true, is G equals 5. If I do a quick check, I can check whether G equals 5 is the correct solution by making sure that G equals 5 makes that equation true. So instead of writing G plus 1 divided by 3, I can write 5 plus 1 divided by 3 and figure out what that equals. I'm hoping, if that's the correct solution, I'm hoping that the answer would be 2. So 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is in fact 2, which tells me that G equals 5 is the correct solution to that equation. So if I've got a different equation, this one is the letter H, and so I need to undo all the processes that have happened to H in order to get H equals a number. So in terms of the story, thinking about what's happened to this letter H, first of all, if I've got this number H, the first thing that I've done to it is subtract 3. The second thing I've done to it is times by 5, and the answer is negative 15. So getting that plan in my brain before I start doing any algebra is a nice way to get things in order. So remembering we're working in the downwards direction for the story, so to undo those processes I need to work backwards in the opposite direction. So first thing I'm going to undo is a times 5, and I'm going to undo that times 5 by dividing both sides of the equation by 5. And then I'm going to undo the negative 3 by adding 3 to both sides of the equation. So if I start with this equation and I am told in my little planner down there that I'm supposed to divide by 5 and divide by 5 on both sides of the equation, these two 5s cancel, and that leaves me with a much simpler looking H minus 3 on that side. And then I've got 5 goes into 5 once, and 5 goes into negative 15 negative 3 times. So I have managed to simplify the equation quite significantly already. but I still haven't got quite h equals. So I've got to undo one more process, and that is to undo the negative 3 by adding 3. So on my equation, I would write in there plus 3, and cancel. And that leaves me with h is equal to negative 3 plus 3, h is equal to 0. So my solution is, if the number h is the number 0, that equation will be a true statement. Okay, so if I want to check that, I can. And I would say 5 lots of 0 take away 3 divided by 5 equals. And if that is the true solution and that makes it a true statement, I want the answer to be negative 15. So what I end up with is 5 lots of negative 3. Oh, I put a divide by 5 there. That wasn't the equation in the first place. It was just 5 lots of h minus 3. Oops. And what I'm expecting is my answer to be negative 15. And in fact, it would be negative 15 because 0 take away 3 is negative 3. So 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. So that tells me that solution is correct. Okay. And just for just for another example, 2k minus 6 divided by 3 is equal to negative 4. So again, in terms of the story, what's happened to k? I've got this number called k. It's been multiplied by 2. It's had 6 taken away, and it's then been divided by 3. The answer to that equation is negative 4. So in terms of our story, if we want to undo what we've done, we need to do the opposite. So multiply by 3 first, add 6, then divide by 2. So that's the sort of plan of action as I'm working through to solve this and to be able to write correct mathematical writing. So if I multiply both sides of the equation by 3, as my planner tells me to do there, I'll get rid of the fraction for starters. So I end up with 2k minus 6 is equal to negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Next step in the plan is to add 6 to both sides. So if I add 6 to the left side, I need to also add 6 to the right side. Negative 6, positive 6, 0. So I'm left with 2k is equal to negative 12, add 6, so I've got negative 6. And then the next step in the plan says I need to divide both sides of the equation by 2, which if I do, cancels off the 2 and just leaves me with k is equal to negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So in order to get method marks, writing out the algebra like that, timesing by 3 on both sides, adding 6 on both sides, dividing by 2 on both sides, that gives me a whole lot of scope here for method marks in an assessment task. If you were going to check that again, you could do a quick little check. And you could say 2 lots of k, which is negative 3, take away 6, divided by 3 should equal negative 4 if that's true. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 take away another 6 is negative 12 over 3. And negative 12 divided by 3 is in fact negative 4. So we know that the solution k equals negative 3 is the correct solution.